warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and to our international audience. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up. Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico in life-threatening condition after an assassination attempt. And we're beginning in Slovakia, where the Prime Minister Robert Fico is in life-threatening condition after an assassination attempt in the town of Handlover. Mr. Fico was leaving a cabinet meeting northeast of the country's capital, Bratislava, when shots, several of them, were fired from a crowd. The 59-year-old collapsed on the ground and was bundled into a car by his security team and was then airlifted by helicopter to a nearby hospital. A man has been detained by police following the incident. Reacting to the assassination attempt, Slovakia's outgoing president, Zuzana Kaputova, and President-elect Peter Pellegrini says they're shocked by the brutal and ruthless attack on the Prime Minister. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen condemns what she calls a vile attack on Mr. Fico. Romanian Prime Minister Marcel Ciolasu, on the other hand, says he's profoundly shocked by the news of the shooting and says perpetrators must be held accountable. For British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Prime Ministers of Czech and Hungary, the shooting is also shocking. Mr. Fico returned to power after elections last September at the head of the populist nationalist coalition. He leads the populist left-wing Smer SSD party and won the vote last October. Now, at least 2 people are dead, hundreds more injured in the Pacific territory of the New Caledonia Riots continuing in response to the French Parliament giving French residents in that area more voting rights. It's the worst disturbance since the 1980s. Protests became violent on Monday night with people burning cars and buildings, as well as attacking police stations. The situation has prompted France's President Emmanuel Macron to cancel a trip to Normandy to chair an emergency defense and national security meeting this morning. Lawmakers in Paris voted 351 to 153 to grant French citizens who have lived in New Caledonia for at least 10 years the right to vote in provincial elections. The change is not going down well with many locals who feel New Caledonia's indigenous Kanak people are being marginalized. The island, located between Australia and Fiji, has been a French territory since the 19th century. Meanwhile, an unprecedented manhunt is still continuing in northern France for a prisoner who escaped during a deadly ambush. The inmate Mohamed Amra was being transported back to jail from a court in Normandy on Tuesday when his prison van was attacked. 2 police officers were killed, 3 others seriously injured after the armed man opened fire on the prison vehicle. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said all means are being used to find the criminals. Darmanin said the attack was an act of cold-blooded barbarity and that around 450 gendarmes and police officers have been mobilized in an unprecedented search. Meanwhile, French prison officer unions have called for walkouts at institutions across the country in support of the 2 officers who died. At least 16 people have been killed in Peru after a bus rolled off a ledge in the mountainous Ayacucho region. Authorities say the bus was carrying more than 40 passengers high in the Andes. Bodies of the deceased have been delivered to the morgue after the last 3 bodies trapped underneath the rubble were retrieved. We're looking at footage there of rescue workers taking bodies in cadaver bags from several vehicles that arrived at the Legal Medical Division B of Ayacucho. Such tragedies are not uncommon in the area, where a combination of badly maintained roads and insufficient driving expertise are major contributing factors. According to Peru's Ministry of Transportation, over 3,000 people died in traffic accidents in the country last year. We're back in Europe. A marina in Medulan, northwest Croatia, was set ablaze this morning, destroying at least 22 boats. The local authorities there say a huge fire engulfed several boats docked at the marina amid heavy black smoke. No injuries have been recorded. The fire has been brought under control, authorities saying the investigation for the cause still underway. They put up barriers in the sea to halt any further environmental damage from the incident. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says Washington is concerned about Georgia's foreign agents legislation. She terms the legislation Kremlin style, which threatens fundamental reassessment of bilateral relations and also runs counter to democratic values. Georgian MPs passed the foreign agent bill on Tuesday. Parliament now has 10 days to submit the initiative to the president for approval. He's already pledged earlier to veto the bill. The bill imposes stringent regulations on NGOs and independent media. Organizations receiving over 20% of their funding from foreign donors will be mandated to register as entities representing foreign interests.
Statement from us on this. We're deeply troubled by Georgia's Kremlin-style foreign agents legislation, which just passed, as you just stated, Parliament, and we expect the president to veto it. While it is unclear whether Parliament will try to override a potential veto, we have been outspoken about our concerns with the legislation, which runs counter to democratic values and would move Georgia further away from the values of the European Union, and let's not forget also NATO. The Georgian people have been making their views known about this legislation, protesting in the streets, as you all have been reporting. This weekend, we saw some of the largest protests in Georgia's history, with tens of thousands of peaceful protesters undeterred by intimidation tactics, telling their government to oppose this legislation because they want Euro-Atlantic future. We will see what the parliament does, but if this legislation passes, it will compel us to fundamentally reassess our relationship. Obviously, our brave to do the work that they're doing, not just in Gaza, but around the world, whether it's Sudan, Haiti, many places that they actually go out there and do that brave work to offer assistance much needed to folks on the ground. And so we appreciate that. We want to see them protected. We want to make sure that they have the ability to continue that work. I don't have an estimate for you on the number of people, to your question, but it is imperative, it is important that we see humanitarian aid workers protected, and those are conversations that we continue to have with the Israeli government.
Staying with the White House is leading an initiative for the U.S. Park Services to award $23.4 million to preserve African American civil rights history. Our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, spoke with the chief spokesperson for National Park Service, Jenny Anselmo Salas, about the project.
We are so glad to have the chief spokesperson for the National Park Services in the United States. We thank you for joining us. We know you all have some big announcements specifically around the African American history, preserving that, national parks doing some new things that the Biden administration has just released. Tell us a little bit about what is actually happening and what's going to be done.
Thanks so much. Yeah, today we're awarding over $23.4 million to 39 projects in 16 states that will help preserve sites and stories directly associated with the struggle of African Americans to gain equal rights in this country. It's part of a program that began in 2016, in which we've invested $126+ million. With this, about $150 million in communities all across the country to help honor these places that tell the story of the struggle for civil rights.
Now, we know that many people view the King Memorial as kind of that first monumental, large monument for African Americans right there on the National Mall. Tell us how this kind of will feed into that, what the plans are. Are there going to be any other monuments of this nature that will be erected as a result of this new funding?
Thanks. We're so lucky here. We're so honored at the Park Service to be entrusted with using the power of place to tell the story of this country. Some of these places are managed by us in the National Park Service, but many others by local communities. And so when people think of the National Park Service, oftentimes people think of these wild Western landscapes, but we also give about $1 billion away every year to local communities. And so this grant program is us helping fund locally driven local projects to invest in their communities and honor this history. So for example, one of the projects that's being funded today in Georgia will help reopen a church in Americus that has served that community from slavery through the Jim Crow era and has since closed because the building's not safe. And so this grant will help that community be able to reopen this church so that people can return and worship there and use it and love it in their community.
Thank you for that explanation. I think people don't really understand preservation as a part of the work of the Park Service. And so when you talk about the grants that'll be offered to communities, how are communities able to get information about, how are they to apply for a grant, what makes them eligible to be able to receive these resources?
The best way to get information on the myriad of grant programs that we offer is through our website, nps.gov. That's as in nationalparkservice.gov. And you can just search for African American Civil Rights Grants or the Historic Preservation Fund. These specific grants today are benchmarked for significance. So projects that help identify and preserve places seminal to the story of the African American experience, projects that have a need or urgency or threat. We want to make sure that these investments can help preserve these places in history so they aren't lost to the future. Feasibility, so projects that are likely to be able to be completed with this federal funding and possibly match with other local or state funds, and then sustainability. And so that really gets at impacts of this project after completion. What is that long-lasting effect and benefit to the community and the ability for a community or an organization to maintain that place into the future? So we look at those 4 criteria of significance, need, feasibility, and sustainability. But there are a myriad of grant programs. So we invite people to check out our website and learn more. This grant program has a cycle typically once each year in the fall.
Thank you. We know that the U.S. often thinks about, when they think slavery and preservation and kind of the historical component, think about the Underground Railroad, which we know has been preserved in many different ways, especially in the Maryland area. Tell us a little bit about if there are any plans, because we know that it goes back way before that, right? Many of the ports where many slaves were brought in. Is there going to be any work done to bring some historical perspective, preservation of those areas that were early entry points, which really then connects the continent of Africa and America?
Well, I think that work is happening every day. Some of it by us, some of it by our partners, and some of it by local communities, which is so important, this sort of locally driven, locally led efforts. One of the programs that we run is called the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, and that allows us to give the designation to private homes, to educational resources, to public spaces to be designated and recognized as a place of significance or a story of significance tied to the Underground Railroad. We also sorry about that. We also are honored to care for Fort Monroe in Virginia and work with our community partners there to honor this really challenging, this really tragic and really difficult part of our past. And I think whether it's these grant programs or whether it's honoring places that were affiliated with the Underground Railroad Network for Freedom and recognizing that in communities all across this country and that entire network, it's helpful. It's so important that we are able to learn from these things that are not always triumphant or heroic in these difficult chapters of our history. And I think the grant programs also help us preserve and honor stories of resilience and celebration and joy. And since January of 2021, the National Park Service has invested over $193 million in infrastructure and preservation projects relating to the African American experience in national parks across our nation. And with this announcement today, we will have invested over $135 million in historic preservation funds into communities to protect sites in their communities associated with Black history.
Thank you. You've identified millions of dollars that have been invested. But just before we go, why now? Why is this such an important part for the Park Services now?
Yeah, I think it's reflecting the priority of Interior and the National Park Service to invest in efforts that tell a more complete story of our nation's history, including Black history. The National Park Service is committed to telling the fullest story of America that we can. And I think arguably that's never been more important than now. And so we hope that these grant programs are able to empower communities to invest in preserving this history and sharing this history. And we're thrilled to be able to be partners in that effort.
We thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
In other news now, at least 11 people have been killed amid clashes between rival cartels in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas. According to officials, 2 nuns and a teenager are among those killed. Residents also said the victims were locals who were massacred by cartel members. The area is being fought over by the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Police and soldiers confirmed they had found 11 bodies in the village of Nuevo Morelia and its surrounding area. Residents reported hearing intense gunfire on Monday night. However, fighting between the rival cartels have since continued. A North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, has visited an arms factory to inspect new ballistic missile launchers. Still images released by state media features Mr. Kim walking around the factory in the company of several army personnel. Local media reported the leader visited a weapons factory that produces a new tactical missile system slated for deployment to missile units of the Korean People's Army. During the visit, Mr. Kim stressed the importance of a transformative shift in the military's readiness for conflict, urging flawless execution of the 2024 weapons production agenda. He also called for enhancements in North Korea's artillery capabilities. Welcome back. Several villagers fear trapped after a landslide in the Kimende area of Kenya. The incident occurred Tuesday night following heavy rains in the area, which sports some long, steep slopes. The area has been cordoned off, and although no fatalities have been confirmed so far, several people remain unaccounted for. At least 289 people are dead, more than 280,000 others displaced after weeks of heavy rainfall across the country. In another development, 4 people were rescued from the rubble of a collapsed building in the Matere neighborhood of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The Kenyan Red Cross says 3 of them are critically injured. 1 person sustained minor injuries. More people are likely to be trapped under the rubble. Kenyan journalist Sarah Samati spoke to us earlier about the latest developments.
The rescue, as you have said, is actually an ongoing process. The military has joined in the rescue process, and it seems to be overwhelmed one way or the other because the cases are many. Like last night, we had a case of landslide here near Nairobi, somewhere called Kiambu, and so far 5 people are missing, according to the locals. The downpost near Mombasa, the area is flooded. So the rescue mission is ongoing. The military is joining the whole mission. The Kenya Red Cross is also joining, and other government officials are joining to try to rescue those people who are trapped in their homes or roads or hospitals and schools all over there. It's a big, massive. Even the government itself now is seeking help of other agencies to help. Like now, we have so many embassies which are coming in to help kind of give out food and money to help those people who are affected by the flood. So you can't say perfectly that the schools are safe to be there, but those are able to now to open and their own. Those are the government yesterday said that there are almost 100 schools which have not opened so far, and those are affecting thousands of children. So it's an issue of wait and see what to see next. It's a problem that stands now. Yeah, they kind of finished rescuing or checking the rubbles. All of them were rescued. There were 34 people, Not only that one, there's another one which actually collapsed yesterday. That's near it's a slum called Madare. They also rescued 4 people who are trapped inside. So what we are seeing is a situation where more and more structures are collapsing because they are wet, because they are built in a place which is kind of wet and they are collapsing. So everywhere there's always an alert being issued for people to move to safer places, and it's an issue of now relying on an agency or government agencies which are also far away from where you are. So as an individual, it's good to know where you are. It's dangerous to move out of that place. It's an individual kind of initiative that can help you to be safe. And the Met Department says that they may continue, the rains are continue until the end of this month. So we have 2 more weeks with the parts of Nairobi, out of Nairobi, and the up country. The rains are still ongoing. So it's an issue of waiting to see what happens up to the end of the month. So the situation is still the wet Nairobi in Kenya rather. Between March and July, March and June there, but then this has been so severe. It has been massive, it has been unprecedented kind of level because people have never experienced such kind of flood in the past. So this one more, people are blaming this thing on climate change, which could be true. But then I can say that this has been higher than what we used to get before.
Well, here in Nigeria, the Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, has threatened legal action against the Speaker of the Niger State House of Assembly following his announcement to marry off 100 orphans who lost their parents to banditry in Mariga, Niger State. Speaking to journalists in Abuja, Mrs. Kennedy Ohaneye explains that the action violates the Child Rights Act, which stipulates protection for children. But the Speaker of the Niger State House of Assembly, Mr. Abdul Malik Sarkin Daji, explains he has rescinded his decision on the matter.
The latest media briefing by the Minister of Women Affairs, and this borders on the protection of orphans and vulnerable persons in the country.
So we will make sure that these girls are getting married.
The minister is reacting to plans by the Niger State Assembly to marry off some orphans in the state.
I heard over the news yesterday and all over the internet where a particular legislator, being the Speaker of Niger State, mentioned as part of his constituency project to marry out and pay dowries for 100 orphans who were displaced by bandits in their village. I want to let the Honorable Speaker of House in Niger State to know that this is totally unacceptable by Federal Minister of Women Affairs and by the government. Totally unacceptable.
She also plans to take up the matter legally.
The future of the children to come out of that marriage must be considered. So I have gone to court. I have written in a letter. I've written a petition to the police, the IG of police, and I have filed a case for injunction to stop him from whatever he's planning to do on the 24th until such a time a thorough investigation is carried out on those girls, find out whether they gave their consent, find out their ages, find out the people marrying them, who are they.
The Speaker of the State Assembly is also reacting to the matter, stating that while the decision is not meant to harm the orphans, he has chosen the path of peace and will discontinue the plan.
I'm disappointed with her action. And as such, I'm making it known to everyone now that that support I intend to give, I'm withdrawing it. For the marriage of those orphans, I've withdrawn. The parent can have the support. If they wish, let them go ahead and marry them out. If they wish, let them use it for whatever purpose they want to. I've done it in good faith, and I will continue to do it.
The Child Rights Act is now adopted in 34 states of the Federation. The Minister of Women Affairs is promising to do better towards the protection of children as well as empowerment of women for socio-economic development. Sarah Chimugu, Channels Television News.
We're staying a bit longer in Nigeria in an effort to establish itself as the cleanest state in Africa. Cross River State government here in South Nigeria has pledged to ensure regular cleaning habits are implemented across all 18 local government areas. In the capital, Calabar, the Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Moses Osoigi, explained that the monthly sanitation program introduced by the governor is designed to create a hygienic environment.
Residents in Calabar, the Cross River State capital, have praised Governor Basiotu for his dedication to neatness in the metropolis. The administration started with regular waste evacuation and drainage cleaning, along with public awareness campaigns to encourage a tidy environment.
The new government has brought a lot of changes, especially in the environmental policies to the state. We have seen the refuse evacuation in the city of Calabar that he embarked on massively immediately he came in. And these are all the things that we didn't see, especially in the last days of the last administration. So him doing this is highly commendable.
I'm happy with what Prisotu has been doing, the renovations that have been going on in Cross River. Everywhere is so bright and looking awesome. So I'm very excited about it.
The Commissioner for the Environment, Mr. Moses Osoige, elaborates on the measures implemented by the state government to achieve its goal of becoming a model for cleanliness in no time, with a promise to reward the neatest senatorial district with a cash prize.
I have been a kind of, creating an awareness, educating them, preaching to them the need to keep our environment, our surrounding very clean, which is a major aspect. And the people are obliged. From there, I saw the response, the compliance level, and I said, okay, this is a wonderful one, that every last Saturday of the month in Cross River State is going to be a sanitation exercise, and we know what sanitation exercise is all about.
Residents, especially traders, have been warned to refrain from any environmental negligence and illegal activities, as such poor practices will no longer be tolerated in Cross River State.
Wondering what all of these shoes are for. Ecuadorian entrepreneur Esteban Del Hierro is attempting to break the world record for the largest collection of training shoes. He has about 6,000 in his collection now, 6,000 pairs, I should say, collected over 45 years, starting since his journey at just 11 years old. Del Hierro shows off his favorite exhibits within his vast collection, including vintage Adidas TRX shoes, a pair of Jeremy Scott X Wings 3.0 solid gold, as well as Starsky and Hutch-inspired trainers. According to him, his world record attempt is about attaching positive meaning to his collection. He aims to create a foundation and leave his collection as a legacy for the city, and also help young athletes of Ecuador reach their potential on the international stage. The current record holder is Jordi Geller from the US. His collection is about 2,388 pairs. That was as at May 2012. Beg your pardon. I know people who'll be needing those pairs. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubadi.